You ever open something you were never supposed to find and realize your whole marriage was built on a lie? That happened to me one ordinary afternoon. The kind where the sun hits your kitchen counter just right and everything feels calm. Until it doesn't. I was in the car that day, looking for my registration papers. My husband, Daniel, had taken my car earlier that morning. He said he needed to borrow it for a quick errand. He left in a rush, like he often did lately. His phone had been buzzing all morning, but he brushed it off with a quick, "Just work, honey." When I opened the glove box, a thin stack of paper slipped out. Bank statements. His name at the top, Daniel Whitaker. Our joint bank's logo. But the account number wasn't one I recognized. At first, I thought it was business. He worked in construction management. Contracts, payments, invoices. It wasn't unusual for him to handle large sums, but as I flipped through the pages, something made my stomach tighten. Transfers. Regular ones. All to the same person. $2,500. $3,200. $1,800. Each month, like clockwork. And beside every transfer, a note. Salon setup. Rent. Supplies, Jess. Jess. The name burned itself into my chest. I didn't know any Jess. The air in that car felt heavy. My fingers trembled as I held the papers. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I just sat there, door half open, the sound of kids playing outside somewhere far away, while the life I thought I had started to unravel in my hands. Before all this, I thought I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. Daniel and I had been married 15 years. We had one daughter, Emily, in college, and a quiet life in a small town just outside Dallas. I taught part-time at the local elementary school. Daniel's company did remodeling projects, mostly residential. Our home wasn't fancy, but it was warm. White curtains, yellow kitchen tiles, a big oak table that Daniel built himself back when we couldn't afford new furniture. We'd sit there every Sunday morning, him reading the paper, me pouring coffee. He used to smile at me across that table. Lately, though, he'd stopped looking up. It started small, the distance. Late nights, work calls that went on too long, that quick flick of the phone screen whenever I walked in. I told myself it was stress. Business was slow, maybe he was worried. But there's a difference between worry and secrecy. And deep down, I knew. He'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't his usual one. His shirts sometimes had faint traces of something floral, not mine. And once, when I went to hug him, he flinched. Just slightly, but enough for me to feel it. I remember that night vividly. I'd made roast chicken, his favorite. He picked at it, said he wasn't hungry. His phone buzzed and he got up from the table, muttering something about a client who needed an estimate. That was the first night I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between the clicks of the clock. The bed felt too big, too cold. You know that quiet dread that creeps in before you even have proof? That was me living next to a man who'd become a stranger, pretending I didn't notice. But life goes on when you've got bills to pay and laundry to fold. So I stayed quiet until those bank statements fell into my lap like a divine intervention. I sat there in the driver's seat for maybe 20 minutes, staring at the same page. The numbers didn't lie. This wasn't business. This was personal. When Daniel came home that evening, I tried to act normal. I made dinner, I smiled, but my heart raced with every word he said. I was watching him closely now. How easily he lied with that familiar, tired smile. After dinner, he took a call outside. I followed, quietly. His voice was low, soft, too soft. The kind of voice a man uses when he's not talking to his wife. "Yeah, Jess, I'll send the rest by Friday. Don't worry, you're doing great, baby." That word, baby, it echoed inside me like a slap. He came back in, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "Sorry, client issue." And I smiled, because I wasn't ready to break just yet. That night, I hid the bank statements under my side of the mattress. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, next to him, listening to his breathing, wondering how many lies could fit between two people in the dark. I kept thinking about that name, Jess. Was she young? Was she pretty? Did she laugh at his jokes? Or did she know he had a wife who ironed his shirts and packed his lunch every morning? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing. I was going to find out.
You ever notice how love fades quietly? Not with slammed doors or shouted words, but just little things. The way good morning turns into a nod. The way laughter stops filling the kitchen. That's how it started. Malik began coming home late again. He'd call it meetings, clients, deadlines. At first, I believed him. He'd always been the ambitious one. I was proud of that. But something about the way he'd avoid my eyes lately, it sat heavy on my chest. One night, while I waited up for him, I noticed the scent. Perfume. Not mine. It wasn't strong, but it lingered. Sweet, floral, expensive. It clung to his jacket like a whisper that didn't belong to our home. I asked him, soft and careful, "You've been working with new clients, huh? Smells fancy." He chuckled, quick and awkward. "Yeah, one of them owns a salon. They spritz that stuff everywhere." He kissed my cheek and disappeared into the shower before I could say anything else. That word, salon, stuck with me. It shouldn't have, but it did. The next few weeks, he started keeping his car keys closer. He never used to mind if I grabbed them off the counter or took his car for errands. Now they were always in his pocket. Even when he napped on the couch, his hand rested right over them. That was my second clue. And then came the bank envelope. I wasn't snooping. Truly, I wasn't. I was cleaning the car, like I always did before the weekend. He had taken the kids to their grandmother's, and I thought, why not surprise him? When I opened the glove box, a thick brown envelope slid out, sealed, but unmarked. I could have ignored it. I really could have. But something in me, the wife in me, the woman who knew the smell of his shirts and the rhythm of his lies, told me not to. I tore the seal open. Inside were printed bank statements. Pages and pages of transactions, regular transfers, large amounts, every 2 weeks, each marked to the same account name, Haven Glow Salon. My heart thudded in my chest. Haven Glow. The name sounded familiar, but not from his work. It took me a minute to remember where I'd heard it. 2 months ago, at a dinner with his friends, one of the wives had mentioned a new boutique salon opening downtown, owned by the prettiest young thing, apparently getting help from a silent investor. Everyone had laughed, teased about the mystery backer. I'd thought nothing of it then. But sitting there, in that quiet car, my hands shaking, the pieces started clicking together. I waited until he got home that night. I tried to act normal, made his favorite curry, put on music, even asked about his day. He talked a lot, like always, filling the space with half-truths. When he finished eating, I asked softly, "Malik, what's Haven Glow Salon?" He froze for just a second, but I saw it, the flicker of panic behind his calm eyes. He wiped his mouth, leaned back, and smiled too smoothly. "Oh, it's a client. I told you. They needed some funding help. I'm just consulting." I nodded, pretending to believe him. But inside, a storm began. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every word he said replayed in my head. Consulting, client, salon. He was lying. I could feel it in my bones. The next morning, after he left for work, I took another look at the papers. The payments weren't small. They weren't consulting level. One was nearly half of our savings. I checked the statement dates. They went back 8 months. 8 months of deceit while I cooked his meals, washed his clothes, and listened to his dreams. My hands trembled as I held those papers. I felt like I was holding a map of betrayal. Still, I told myself, don't jump to conclusions. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe it's really business. So, I decided to see for myself. The next Friday, I told him I was visiting my sister. Instead, I drove downtown to the address listed on one of the statements. Haven Glow Salon was exactly what the name promised. Polished, modern, glowing with gold letters on black glass. I parked across the street and watched for a while. Through the big front window, I saw her. She was young, maybe late 20s, long, shiny hair, the kind that never sees stress. She laughed too easily, touching her staff's shoulders like she owned the world. And then I saw him, Malik, my husband, standing behind her, smiling as she leaned close, showing him something on her phone. His hand brushed hers, light and familiar. I couldn't breathe. The world tilted, cars, voices, everything spinning in slow motion. My chest tightened, but no tears came, not yet. I just sat there, frozen behind the wheel, watching the man I'd built my life with live another one behind my back. When he finally walked out, I ducked low. He was carrying flowers. Of course he was. He drove off in the opposite direction. I followed at a distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. He didn't go home. He went to a small apartment building on the edge of the city. I watched him park, look around, and enter the gate like he'd done it 100 times. That was the moment everything changed. That night, he came home with the same soft smile, asking about dinner. I stared at him, trying to see what I used to see, but all I could find was a stranger. He asked, "What's wrong, baby?" And I almost laughed. I wanted to scream, to throw those papers at him and ask how long he'd been pretending, but instead I just said, "Nothing, just tired." Because I needed time. Time to plan. Time to decide how to end this story on my terms. And trust me, I did. The next few days felt like living with a ghost. He was there, eating at my table, talking about work, laughing with the kids, but every sound he made felt like it came from someone I no longer knew. I moved through the house like a shadow, careful not to let my anger spill too early. Because when you've been lied to that deeply, you learn silence is power. I started collecting proof. Every night after he fell asleep, I'd open his laptop. The password hadn't changed in years. His mother's birthday, how poetic. Emails, transfers, messages, all of it. There she was. Sonia. That was her name. Their emails weren't romantic, not exactly. Not the way novels described love. It was worse. Practical, planned, domestic. He'd sent her payment receipts, lease paperwork for her salon, even advice about staff management. She called him M. He called her Sunshine. The name hit me like a slap. I hadn't been called anything sweet in years. The final straw came one Tuesday evening. He texted me that he was running late. Client dinner, he said. So I waited. Then, out of curiosity, I opened Sonia's salon page on social media. A live video was playing. There she was. Bright dress,
champagne glass in hand, celebrating 6 months of Haven Glow success. And there he was, beside her, smiling, clapping, hand resting on the small of her back. When she said, "Couldn't have done this without my silent partner," he grinned like a man proud of his home. My thumb shook when I ended the video. I sat in the dark kitchen, the refrigerator hum the only sound around me. It's funny how quiet betrayal sounds. That night, he came home smelling of perfume and champagne. When he saw me waiting at the table, his smile faded. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice cautious. I didn't answer. I just slid the bank statements across the table, one after another, until his fingers stopped trembling enough to grab them. He stared at the papers, then at me. Color drained from his face. "Where did you—" "Glove box," I said simply. "Guess you forgot your secrets have wheels." He sat down slowly. He whispered, "I was going to tell you. It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Malik?" My voice was calm, steady, colder than I'd ever heard it.
"You're funding another woman's dream while mine dies in this kitchen?" He exhaled hard, pressing his palms together. "She needed help. She's been through a lot." "So have I cut in. But you didn't buy me a salon." He rubbed his face, the way guilty men do when words dry up. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't serious. She made me feel alive again." Those words, alive again, as if my love had been death to him. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to find out your husband's heart has an address you've never been to?" He said nothing. And sometimes silence is worse than lies. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, went to the bedroom, and started packing. When he followed me, asking what I was doing, I said softly, "Leaving before the ashes settle. I don't need to watch what burns." He begged. He promised. He even cried, the kind of crying that sounds like regret, but smells like fear. I let him talk, but my heart was done listening to. The next morning, I called my lawyer cousin, Nadia. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come by, we'll start the paperwork." By that weekend, I'd moved into my sister's house. Word travels fast in small towns. By Monday, everyone knew. Some people whispered, others pitied, a few smiled behind their hands. But you know what surprised me? It didn't break me. It freed me. Malik tried to explain himself to everyone, claimed it was business, claimed he was misunderstood. But truth has a way of shining through even the prettiest lies. A week later, a video surfaced, the same salon celebration clip, but this time, someone had tagged him. It spread faster than either of us imagined. His colleagues saw. His mother saw. Even our kids' teachers whispered. Suddenly, I wasn't the foolish wife anymore. I was the woman who walked away with her dignity intact. A few days later, he showed up at my sister's porch. He looked tired, unshaven, older somehow. "Please," he said, voice shaking, "let's talk." I stepped outside, crossing my arms. There's nothing left to talk about, Malik. You made your choice. He rubbed his neck. I didn't choose her over you. I got lost. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said quietly, I hope you find your way back. Just not to me. And with that, I closed the door. Funny thing is, pain doesn't last forever. It lingers, yes. It hums under your ribs like an old wound. But one day, you wake up and realize you survived it. You're still here. That's what happened to me. I spent the next few months piecing myself back together. I started taking small freelance projects, writing, organizing, helping friends with their businesses. It wasn't much, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. And every time I looked at those bank statements, I didn't see betrayal anymore. I saw a lesson, one that cost me dearly but taught me everything about self-worth. You're funding another woman's dream while mine dies in this kitchen? He exhaled hard, pressing his palms together. She needed help. She's been through a lot. So have I cut in, but you didn't buy me a salon. He rubbed his face, the way guilty men do when words dry up. I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't serious. She made me feel alive again. Those words, alive again, as if my love had been death to him. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. Do you have any idea what it feels like to find out your husband's heart has an address you've never been to? He said nothing. And sometimes silence is worse than lies. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, went to the bedroom, and started packing. When he followed me, asking what I was doing, I said softly, leaving before the ashes settle. I don't need to watch what burns. He begged. He promised. He even cried, the kind of crying that sounds like regret but smells like fear. I let him talk, but my heart was done listening to. The next morning, I called my lawyer cousin, Nadia. She didn't ask questions. She just said, come by, we'll start the paperwork. By that weekend, I'd moved into my sister's house. Word travels fast in small towns. By Monday, everyone knew. Some people whispered, others pitied, a few smiled behind their hands. But you know what surprised me? It didn't break me. It freed me. Malik tried to explain himself to everyone, claimed it was business, claimed he was misunderstood. But truth has a way of shining through even the prettiest lies. A week later, a video surfaced, the same salon celebration clip, but this time, someone had tagged him. It spread faster than either of us imagined. His colleagues saw. His mother saw. Even our kids' teachers whispered. Suddenly, I wasn't the foolish wife anymore. I was the woman who walked away with her dignity intact. A few days later, he showed up at my sister's porch. He looked tired, unshaven, older somehow. Please, he said, voice shaking, let's talk. I stepped outside, crossing my arms. There's nothing left to talk about, Malik. You made your choice. He rubbed his neck. I didn't choose her over you. I got lost. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said quietly, I hope you find your way back. Just not to me. And with that, I closed the door. Funny thing is, pain doesn't last forever. It lingers, yes. It hums under your ribs like an old wound. But one day, you wake up and realize you survived it. You're still here. That's what happened to me. I spent the next few months piecing myself back together. I started taking small freelance projects, writing, organizing, helping friends with their businesses. It wasn't much, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. And every time I looked at those bank statements, I didn't see betrayal anymore. I saw a lesson, one that cost me dearly but taught me everything about self-worth.
They say the hardest part isn't walking away, it's staying gone. Because after the shouting fades and the papers are signed, what's left is silence, the kind that echoes inside you. But silence, I learned, can also be healing. For months, I woke up to the sound of my own breathing, surprised I could still do it without him beside me. I made my coffee slower. I learned to enjoy the hum of the morning again. No rushing to pack his lunch. No pretending not to notice when he scrolled through his phone with that distracted smile. It was quiet, painfully quiet at first, but then peaceful. I started walking every evening, headphones in, eyes forward, letting the sunset paint the sky while I untangled my thoughts. Some days I missed him, or maybe I missed who I felt he was. But every time I felt that ache, I'd remind myself, he didn't break me. He just showed me where I was already bending too much. One morning, Nadia, my cousin and lawyer, dropped by with some papers. She smiled and said, "It's done. Divorce finalized." She waited, maybe expecting tears or relief. But all I felt was a strange calmness. Like I'd been carrying a weight so long, I forgot how light freedom felt. Later that night, I went through my old storage boxes, the ones I'd been avoiding. There, buried under receipts and photo albums, were the original bank statements, the ones that started everything. I held them for a long while, tracing the numbers that had once felt like knives. Then I walked outside, lit a small match, and watched them burn. The papers curled, blackened, turned to ash. The wind carried them away, and with it, a piece of my past I no longer needed. A few months passed. Life, as it tends to do, began to take shape again. I rented a small apartment downtown, started helping a local women's group with bookkeeping. Then one afternoon, a friend from church asked if I'd help her open a small side business, a thrift and crafts shop. At first, I laughed. "I can't run a shop," I told her. She smiled. "You can run a life, can't you? That's harder." Something about that sentence stayed with me. So, I did it. I took a small loan, found an empty storefront near the market, painted the walls myself. It smelled like dust and hope, and when I hung the sign, Second Chance Studio, it felt like I'd finally taken my story back. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every shelf I arranged, every customer I greeted, reminded me that healing doesn't happen when you move on. It happens when you build again, brick by brick, moment by moment. One afternoon, months later, I saw Malik again. He walked past my shop, thinner now, a bit older. He stopped at the window and stared at the display. Hand-painted mugs, little notes that said things like,